Has anybody been prosecuted or charged with any of this Russian investigation?
I'm sorry, on this matter that I'm
Yeah.
handling, no one that I'm aware of.
Okay. Following up on a question that Senator Feinstein asked, did the Obama administration or President Obama himself, is what the one I'm interested in, know about the counterintelligence investigation?
I don't know the answer to that definitively. Our authority was over the FBI and to look at the FBI and department activities.
In January 2018, Chairman Graham and I wrote to the FBI and the department referring Christopher Steele for investigation of potentially lying to the FBI. We told the FBI, the department, that what the FBI told the court about Steele's media contacts didn't match with what he told the British court. Four questions in regard to that. Mm-hmm. Did the FBI ever ask Steele whether he was a source for the September 2016 Yahoo News article that cited Western intelligence sources, quote unquote? If not, why not?
They did not ask that question, despite having the opportunity to do so. And we got a variety of explanations, including that as to some of these issues that they didn't want to offend him or jeopardize their relationship with him.
Question 2, on October the 11th draft of the FISA application stating FBI believes Steele was the source for the Yahoo News article, but it was taken out in the October 14th draft. Why did the FBI originally say Steele was the source? And what factual basis did the FBI have to change that and tell the court that Steele was not a source?
This is what was so disturbing about that event, which is the initial application said, as you noted, that the FBI assessed that Steele was the direct source or was a direct source. And on October 14th, the drafts changed to the exact opposite. Mm-hmm. What we found is the FBI had no basis for the first statement, no evidence in their file. It turned out the first statement was, in fact, the accurate statement. The point, though, was they had no evidence to support that. And when they flipped it, they had no evidence to support that either. That's the kind of issue that under the basic Woods procedures, the factual accuracy procedures, had someone been doing their job and following up, they would have seen that and found that. And, of course, had they bothered to ask Mr. Steele, they might have found out which of the two versions was true.
Maybe they weren't interested in doing their job. Question 3. Chairman Graham and I sent our referral to the FBI and the DOJ on January the 4th, 2018. And according to your report, although the FBI already knew that the British intelligence and the FBI officials discussed the litigation with Director Comey, the FBI never got Steele's statement in that litigation until we provided them. The FBI also never considered updating the court on these statements. When did the court learn about these contradictory statements about whether Steele did or didn't have contact with the media? And did anyone in the FBI seem concerned at all that it was not updating the FISC, the court? It was knowingly providing a court with incorrect and misleading information.
So the FISA court first learned of it in at least as I understand it, in a letter sent in June 2018, a year after the last FISA authorization, when the Justice Department lawyers sent a letter informing them of new information that they had learned, including from the litigation that Mr. Steele had acknowledged he was a direct contact for Yahoo News in that story. That was the first time the court was told about it.
Okay. Would you look at footnote 461 for me?
Yes.
That footnote states that a former FBI confidential human source contacted an FBI agent in an FBI field office in late July 2016 to report information from, quote, a colleague who runs an investigative firm hired by two entities, the Democratic National Committee as well as another individual who was not named, to explore Donald Trump's long-standing ties to Russian entities, end of quote. Was that investigative firm Fusion GPS, or did the DNC hire another firm to peddle anti-Trump information to Obama's FBI?
I don't know definitively which it is, but I can certainly follow up and get back to you on that.
But it is a question you can answer for me.
I don't know. I have to double check
Okay.
with our folks on that.
And if you couldn't, would that be a case of privacy or something?
No, I just don't know if we've ultimately figured out the answer to that question, because it was in a different field office with different people to have to interview and that sort of thing. I'm not sure how much we went down that road, frankly.
Okay, thank you. I've been asking questions since September 2017 about what kind of defensive briefings the FBI provided to the Trump campaign. The FBI told me its briefings to both campaigns were similar and that it wasn't aware of action that it took as a result. Chairman Johnson and I wrote again to the FBI 2 months ago. We noted that text messages between Strzok and Page indicated that the FBI may have used defensive briefings not to warn the Trump campaign, but to investigate it. 4 questions along this line. Question number 1, would you agree that with respect to the defensive briefings, the Trump campaign's briefings were treated differently than those provided to the Clinton campaign?
If I could, they were called it was not an FBI briefing. The FBI went to a Office of the National Director of National Intelligence briefing. It was a strategic counterintelligence briefing, and I mention that because it precisely wasn't a defensive briefing. It was an intelligence briefing, and they were treated differently in that the agent wrote it up to the file and put the information in the file. The briefings were identical, but the net result was one was for investigative purposes and one was purely for the intelligence briefing.
I think what you said touches on question 2, but I'm going to ask it anyway. In this case, the agency at the Trump campaign briefing documented statements and interactions of Michael Flynn and candidate Trump for the FBI's investigative files. Is it normal for the counterintelligence briefers to document statements and interactions of individuals that they're briefing for investigative purposes?
It was documented in one and not documented in the other, as you said, Senator. And based on what we saw, there's actually no policy on it. But based on the reaction of the current leadership and Director Wray's response, where he underlined the word, "this will not happen" going forward, I think it's pretty clear what his state of mind is on that, that this should not have occurred.
Question number 3, did the FBI make any investigative use of the information garnered in the defense briefing, for example, to inform its later interview with Michael Flynn?
So I don't know definitively whether that did occur, but that was certainly the stated purpose for the agent being present.
Okay. Lastly, campaigns place trust in the FBI to provide an environment of cooperation and honest assessments about the risk of foreign threats. How can the FBI repair that trust after abusing the briefing process?
Well, that's where we make the recommendation. We think the FBI has to clearly state what its policy is. It does these kind of strategic briefings, as the chairman mentioned, for members of Congress, for private citizens, companies when they get attacked on their computer systems, for example, for transition purposes, as was the case here. And there needs to be clear guidance and rules so that those getting the briefings understand.
Okay. On another point, according to your report, Bruce Orr told the FBI that Steele's reporting had gone to the Clinton campaign November 2016. By January 11, 2017, key investigators knew the dossier was prepared in part for the DNC. And by February and March 2017, quote unquote, it was broadly known in the FBI and by senior Justice Department officials that Den Simpson was working for the Democrat Party. How many people in the FBI and DOJ knew that the Steele dossier was political opposition research funded by the Democrats, and who were they, and did any of them approve information in the FISA or any of its renewals while knowing who was paying for it?
So on the FBI side, as we lay out in the report, it's page 258 forward, there were a number of people who knew. It's challenging, getting back to the chairman's question, to know precisely what was known at the very highest levels of the FBI and when, the director, deputy director levels, because of the lack of any, direct record of entire briefings. But there certainly was much information, as we lay out here, known at the FBI. At the Justice Department, much of that information was not known. In fact, one of the concerns we note in the information about what Mr. Orr did is Mr. Orr was passing along this information from Mr. Steele to the FBI. That information was not then being given back by the FBI to the Justice Department. So the people, the colleagues of Mr. Orr's at the Justice Department were approving and reviewing these files didn't know that their colleague had passed along that